Hi there. So I wanted to ask you, where do you draw your line in the sand after emotional abuse? This question came up for me with a client. She has done a lot of healing work. She's done a lot of learning about emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse. She's done a lot of learning techniques, getting new ideas into her mind. She's done a lot of mindset transformation. She's done a lot of work. And yet she had come to me to understand for herself where she could say, no, this is not okay. With all the information that she had and all the knowledge that she'd acquired and all the awareness of her own feelings, she was still not okay with saying, no, I'm not prepared to tolerate this. And this struck me as a very, very important issue that we all have to face after we've been through some kind of an abusive relationship. So that's what I want to look at with you in today's vlog. So one of the first things that we learn in an abusive relationship is that we cannot trust our own judgment. And the reason why we cannot trust our own judgment is because our abuser has told us again and again and again that our own judgment is crazy, it's wrong, it's inadequate, and that the only person's judgment that we can rely on is actually our abuser's judgment. How is that for tying your hands behind your back? So they teach you this by telling you that you overreact, that you can't take a joke, that you're too sensitive, that you have created the situation in the first place, that you're seeing things that weren't there, that you're reacting to something that they never said in the first place, you know, the I never said that routine, and all of this garbage. And we internalize all of it again and again and again, so that when something happens that hurts us, we reach the point of going, yeah, but is it that big of a deal? Am I overreacting? Am I being too sensitive? Have I got the wrong end of the stick? You know, and all of these things that make us doubt ourselves, with the result that it's very, very hard to react and draw the appropriate lines in the sand. I can remember in the early days of my marriage that it was a rotten marriage from the beginning. However, I thought I was pretty smart and I had all the answers because I was a kid. I really was very young and naive. And one thing that stuck in my mind, although I did not have an idea for a moment that my husband was abusive, but I'd read an article somewhere about physical domestic violence. And the one thing that I knew I would never take from my then husband, although I was already taking a lot a couple of years into the marriage, was that I would never tolerate being hit. And I remember reading that article and saying to my then husband, I would never tolerate anyone hitting me. I would leave straight away. Now, I don't think he was a hitter. And I do think that he may well have stored that information as a useful cutoff point for him. So I never had to deal with that. I dealt with the threat of that because he would use that quite adroitly, but he didn't actually overstep that mark which I had told him about. Whether in reality I would have left him is another matter, because it was this whole thing about the line in the sand that kept receding. Well, yes, that's a watershed, but if I provoked him and then he did that, or if he said a nice sorry, well, then maybe it wasn't so bad. That's the kind of thing we all get caught up in. So we always look for that ultimate proof, the thing that shows us definitely that we have to say, no, this is not okay. No, you have overstepped too far and too many times, and this is the end. And that's why we always ask, but is this abuse? Are they a narcissist? It's always this, can you give me the cast iron certainty that I need to walk away? Because if there's even a tiny doubt, I'm not moving. Because if there's a tiny amount of doubt, then magically perhaps everything could turn around. So how do you draw that line in the sand when you don't know how to draw that line in the sand? It's one big question, isn't it? And obviously, the answer has to be about validating yourself. So one of the questions to ask yourself would be, how much am I hurting? Now, I know that a lot of us can minimize the hurt that we've been through. Yeah, we're hurting, but it's not that bad. We know it's that bad. So one of the questions to ask yourself is, how much am I hurting? How much is this hurting me? How many times have I been through this or a very similar scenario before? When did it ever work out well? What would it take for it to work out well? And the answer, a miracle, is not a hopeful answer. If you have to answer a miracle, then you kind of know that that's never going to happen. For the record, I do believe in miraculous change in our personal lives, but I believe in miraculous change in our lives, our own lives that we bring about by the changes that we implement. I do not believe that we bring about change in a narcissist's life by wanting it, hoping it, praying for it, and appeasing for it, and begging for it. So you have to ask yourself how much it's hurting you. You also have to ask yourself how much this scenario has affected you, how much it has diminished you in terms of your confidence, in terms of your sense of your own worth, in terms of your hopefulness about the future, of your dreams, of your happiness, of your belief in yourself. If all those things are happening, if this thing, whatever it is, sits like a lead weight about your neck, then you need to know that this really is a line in the sand. Anybody who walks through this earth bearing the weight of a partner or a parent or another person's mistreatment of them, like a lead weight around their neck, has reached that line in the sand. The hope in the miracle doesn't uplift you. It doesn't give you anything. It's just, well, it gives you just that little bit of strength to keep carrying that weight around your neck that bit longer. But you have to be realistic with yourself and say, okay, this feels like hell. What am I doing this for? How would it be if I just owned that this situation is a total disaster and it's not going to change. And what I've seen in the many, many years that I've been doing this now and in my own life is that the hardest part of a situation is holding on like crazy and living in fear of losing this thing that we have already lost. And that actually, when you say, no, I am going to let it go, I am going to wash my hands of this, I'm going to say this is over and I will not ever try to get it back because it cannot come back, there is always a relief. That doesn't make it easy. It leaves you for sure with another set of problems to deal with. But those problems are problems that are within your remit, problems that you can deal with. You can find a way to deal with. And that makes for a much more empowered feeling. You can, at that point, start to transform your life, and you can create your own miracles in your life. Going back to my client, she said to me, where do I draw my line in the sand? And I just said to her, you can draw that line in the sand wherever you want to, because it is your line, your sand, your life. That goes for you too. You can draw that line in the sand wherever you want to, wherever you feel that something is sucking the life out of you. There is no point in staying in a toxic relationship, tolerating toxic abuse in the hope that one day you're going to miraculously punch through this endless wall of abuse and come out into the sunny, happily ever after. It doesn't happen. You don't have that punching power, and the abuser can create more and more walls of abuse every time you punch through them. You never, ever get to the end of it. Draw your line in the sand, wherever it is. You are justified because the relationship is sucking the life out of you. You know that to be true emotionally. Could you explain that clearly to somebody who doesn't want to hear it and doesn't want to understand? Possibly not. But basically, they don't care what happens to your life. You have to. Draw your line in the sand. Free yourself of that lead weight around your neck. And things can and will get a whole lot better, even when you're dealing with the difficulties and the fallout of ending this relationship. I have seen it so many times. The hardest part of an emotionally abusive relationship or a narcissistic relationship is clinging on. Once you let go, by your own volition, things will start to get a whole lot better. Bye for now.